States, Senator Marco Rubio. Thank you very much. Thank you. I am so honored to be with you guys here today, because let me tell you something, it always comes down to Florida. It always comes down to Florida. It'll come down to Florida on the 15th, and it'll come down to Florida in November, because in November of this year, as our nominee, I will defeat Hillary Clinton in Florida, and I will be elected president of the United States. But we have some work to do. We have some work to do in this country, as you guys well know. A lot of work. Because the last 8 years have been incredibly damaging to the United States. Barack Obama has done extensive damage to America because he has followed a strategy and policies that take us away from all the things that make America special. And that's why this election is not just a choice between political parties. This election is a referendum on our identity as a nation. For over 200 years, this has been a special country, an exceptional one. There's never been a country like the United States in the history of all mankind. But that was not an accident. It was as a result of the fact that the people that came before us, in each generation before us, they did what needed to be done to make this a special country. Now the time has come for us to do that as well in this generation. And we must do so with a backdrop of 8 years of a president who has gone after all of the things that separate us from the rest of the world.
Yeah.
We have a president that's abandoned the Constitution, that refuses to follow it, who on a regular basis violates it. You elect me president, and for the first time in 8 years, we will have a president that follows the Constitution of the United States. For the first time in 8 years, you're going to have a president that protects your First Amendment right to live out the teachings of your faith in every aspect of your life. You're going to have, for the first time in 8 years, a president that protects your Second Amendment right to defend yourself and your family. You're going to have a president for the first time in 8 years that understands that if government is even supposed to be involved, it is most probably at the state level, not the power at the federal level. We want power in the states. I will prove to people from my first day in office that we're following the Constitution. Because on my first day in office, after I take the oath of office, I'm going straight to the Oval Office, and I will repeal every single one of Barack Obama's unconstitutional executive orders. We have a president that's undermined free enterprise, the best economic model that's ever existed. And I say that to you as someone not who inherited millions of dollars, because I did not. I say this to you as someone whose mother was a maid, whose father was a bartender that worked at a hotel. My parents never made a lot of money, but they were successful people because free enterprise allowed them to succeed. It is the only economic model in the world where you can make poor people richer and you don't have to make rich people poorer.
Yeah.
And that's why, in a campaign often dominated in the press by insults and profanity and vulgarity. We have taken the time to put forth real public policy. I know it gets boring sometimes, but that's what our conservative movement should always be about. And that's why if you go on my website, marcorubio.com, you will find a real plan to fix our tax code. You will find a real plan to roll back these crazy federal regulations. You will find a real plan to save Social Security and Medicare. You will find a real plan to balance our budget. You will find a real plan to fully utilize our energy resources. And you will find a real plan to repeal and replace Obamacare once and for all. We have a president that's abandoned a strong national defense. Look, today the world is as dangerous as it has ever been in my lifetime. There is a sociopath lunatic in North Korea who has nuclear weapons. The Chinese government is taking over the South China Sea, and they are building up their military at a historic pace. Vladimir Putin is not some great, strong leader. He is a thug who is sowing instability in Europe and in the Middle East. Iran is about to get $100 billion of sanctions relief because of Barack Obama's deal with the Ayatollah. And radical Islamic jihadists are spreading all over the world. ISIS has affiliates in over a dozen countries. In the face of all this danger, Barack Obama's gutting our military, absolutely gutting it. We will soon have the smallest army since the end of World War II, the smallest Navy in 100 years, the smallest Air Force in our history. The world is more dangerous and our military is growing smaller. This is an outrage. And by the way, defense spending is not the reason why we have a national debt. There's no excuse for these defense cuts. And that's why when I'm President of the United States, we are going to undertake a Reagan-style rebuilding of the United States military. There's a few Gator fans here today. I'm seeing some Gator. Hey, I'm not saying anything bad about anybody else. That's right, go Gators. Hey, listen, for the next 8 days, I'm for everybody. The U, the FSU, the Bulls, everybody. Yeah, see that? Yeah. What is that? Oh, UCF, yes. UCF sign. What's the UCF? All right. We got UN there. All right. I'm for everybody. Anyone with Stetson? Rollins College. All right. I need you all.
Miami-Dade University.
What was I talking? Oh, national security. Yeah. You get talking about college basketball and football, you get off track. Listen, when I'm President of the United States, we're going to have a real war on terror. We have now is a fake war. This is a fake war on terror. We're going to have a real one. The best intelligence agencies in the world are going to find them. The rebuilt military is going to destroy them. And if we capture a terrorist alive, they're not going to have the right to remain silent. They're not getting a court hearing in Manhattan. They're not coming to some jail in America. They're going to Guantanamo. We're going to stand with our allies when I'm president. Let me tell you, this president has betrayed Israel. For 8 years, Barack Obama has treated the Prime Minister of Israel with less respect than what he gives to the Ayatollah in Iran. That makes no sense. Israel is the only pro-American, free enterprise, democracy in the Middle East. When I'm President of the United States, because there's a guy running for president now who says he's not picking sides between Israel and its enemies. I'm picking sides. I'm picking sides. We're going to be on Israel's side. On my first day in office, after I am done getting rid of all of Barack Obama's unconstitutional executive orders, I am going to cancel his deal with the Ayatollah of Iran. You know what else we're going to do when I'm president that we're not doing now? We are going to take care of our veterans again. If you're a veteran, will you raise your hand so we can thank you? God bless our veterans. All of them. Thank you. We're not taking care of our veterans these days. Record number of veterans are homeless, unemployed, committing suicide. USA Today 2 weeks ago, and the headline said, calls to the VA suicide hotline went to voicemail. It's an outrage. No one held accountable for it. Gets even worse. 48 hours ago, we read the news of a serviceman or veteran who took his life. He called the VA. He was one of the people that left the voicemail. They didn't call him until the day after he had died. Now, there are good people working at the VA, and we thank them for what they do. But there are people at the VA that are not doing their job. A year ago, I was able to pass a law, but even or not, I worked with Bernie Sanders on it. We don't agree on anything else. We agreed on this law. And that law gave us the power to fire senior executives at the VA who are not doing a good job. But someone just committed suicide. A veteran committed suicide because calls went to voicemail and no one's being held accountable. When I'm president of the United States, if you're not doing your job at the VA, I will use that law and you will be fired from your job at the VA. Here's what's more. When I'm president of the United States, our veterans will continue to go to VA if you choose it. But you will be able to take your VA benefits to any hospital or any doctor that you want to go see. Real choice. And by the way, I thank the sheriff for his introduction. We're reminded that a lot of our veterans, many of our veterans, do not stop serving us when they come home. You go to any fire department in America, you will find veterans. You go to any police department or sheriff's department, and you will find veterans. And let me tell you, a few days ago, I was in Virginia, and the news came out of 3 police officers that had been shot. One of them died. She was on her first day on the job. She was a Marine reservist, a veteran who died within hours of her first day on the job. And so I want to take this moment to thank our firefighters, our sheriff deputies, our police officers for everything they do for us. This is the most important election in a generation. Now, you hear that every 4 years. And the reason why you hear it every 4 years is because it keeps getting worse. And so they keep getting more important. This is it. This is the last chance for this nation to get it right. If we get this election wrong, our kids are going to be the first Americans to inherit a diminished country from their parents. If we get this election wrong, we're going to have to explain to our children why they became the first Americans in our history who inherited a country worse than the ones their parents were left with. We are going to get this wrong if we elect Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton as president.
Ooh.
Bernie Sanders, although he worked with me on one law, Bernie Sanders is a socialist.
It's a communist.
Usually when you call someone a socialist in American politics, they deny it. Bernie says it in his commercials. He's a socialist. I used to say, before they got mad, I used to say, Bernie Sanders is a good candidate for president of Sweden.
Or Cuba.
When Sweden got really mad, so I said, okay, Norway. The Norwegians got mad.
Cuba.
So is there anybody here from Luxembourg? No, no way. All right. All right, Monaco.
Send him
Anybody
to
here from
Cuba.
Monaco? My point is, if you want to be a socialist, move to a socialist country.
Cuba.
We want to be the United States of America. And God bless Luxembourg, okay? I like Luxembourg. I need to win the Luxembourg vote. The other candidate they have is Hillary Clinton.
Boo! Boo!
See, I knew you would say
Hildebeest!
that.
The Hildebeest!
Hillary Clinton is not qualified to be president of the United States.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton put classified information on her private email server. I am a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee. My staff has access to that information. If they were to walk out of that building with that information, they would be fired and they would be put in jail. No one is above the law, and she's reckless and irresponsible for having done that with that information. But let me tell you something else. She's unqualified, she's disqualified from being commander-in-chief.
She's incompetent.
Because Hillary Clinton, because on September 11th of 2012, 4 Americans died in Benghazi, Libya. And she knew that they died because of a terrorist attack. And she lied to their families and told them it was because of a YouTube video.
Yeah.
Anyone who lies to the families of Americans who have died in the service of our country can never be the commander-in-chief of the United States of America.
Yes.
We can't lose this election. If we lose, that means all these Obama policies become permanent. If Hillary Clinton wins, Obamacare's here to stay. If Hillary Clinton wins, Dodd-Frank, which is destroying community banking, is here to stay. If Hillary Clinton wins, all these crazy regulations that are killing American businesses are here to stay. If Hillary Clinton wins, the growth of the federal government will continue. If she wins, our national security will continue to erode. If she wins, Justice Scalia will not be replaced by someone like Justice Scalia. He will be replaced by someone who believes the Constitution is whatever you want it to mean. And if the Constitution is whatever you want it to mean, it means nothing at all anymore. That's how high the stakes are. And so not once, but twice, the Republican Party and this nation will look to Florida to help make the right choice. As a party, we have to nominate someone who can win. Now, usually, what that means is, what they're saying to you is, vote for so-and-so because they're more like the Democrats. It gives us a better chance to win. That doesn't work. I heard that before. In 2009, I was a private citizen, and there was an opening in the U.S. Senate. And the entire Republican establishment here and in Washington came to me and said, we are going with Charlie Crist for U.S. Senate. And I said, I know Charlie Crist is registered as a Republican, but he's neither a conservative nor a Republican. And they said to me, it doesn't matter, he gives us the best chance to win because he's more like the Democrats. And I said, well, why do we need 2 Democratic parties? We need someone that will go to Washington and stand up to the Obama agenda and offer an alternative. I'm running. And the entire establishment came against me. I'll never forget that race. There are people standing here now, I see your faces. You were some of the few that believed in me. Most of the people that thought I could win in the early days of that race, they all lived in my home. 4 of them were under the age of 10. I had no idea how I was going to win. I didn't know how I was going to raise the money. Charlie Crist had 75% approval ratings. Every day the press would ask me, why are you in this race? You're going to lose, you're going to get crushed, you're going to fall behind, you're going to embarrass yourself. But we went forward because the stakes were too high. And sure enough, even before that race reached the primary, Charlie Crist did what I knew he would do. He left the Republican Party and ran as an independent. And we beat him in November of that year. Then, he came back 4 years later and ran against Rick Scott, this time as a Democrat. So he went from Republican to independent to Democrat. Now he's a vegetarian. He keeps moving. I need the vegetarian vote. I have nothing against you. I don't get it, but I have nothing against vegetarians. I've been here before. I've been in this moment before. When people say something can't be done, I know it can be done, and it must be done. We need to elect someone who can win, but not by caving on our principles, but by taking our principles to people that don't vote for us now. Someone who can unite this party. If we nominate someone that 1/3 of our party hates, we lose. If we nominate someone that people won't vote for, we lose. We need someone that will unite this party, and I can and I will. But we also need someone that will grow it. That will grow our party by taking our principles to people that don't normally vote for us. And I've done that already. Because I took our conservative principles to the island of Puerto Rico. I didn't go there and say, vote for me, I'm almost like a Democrat. I didn't go there and say, vote for me, I'm in favor of all the things the Democrats want. I said, vote for me, I'm a conservative, and limited government, and free enterprise, and a strong national defense. That's good for Puerto Rico, that's good for you, that's good for America. And last night, in an open primary where anyone could have shown up and voted, I got over 70% of the vote, and all 23 delegates on the island of Puerto Rico. We will take our message to people living paycheck to paycheck. For years, they've been told by the left that the Republican Party doesn't care about people that are struggling financially. I know we do. I know I do, because I grew up paycheck to paycheck. I've lived paycheck to paycheck. We're going to take our message to young Americans, many of whom today are stuck with thousands of dollars of student loan debt. I had student loan debt. I owed over $100,000 of student loan debt. When I became a U.S. Senator, I still had over $100,000 of student loan debt. I never would have paid it off had I not written a book. It's called An American Son. It's now available on paperback. That's the other book. That's for my kids' loans, the second one. And that's why I'm the only Republican running that talks about student loan debt in a serious way. We're taking our message to young families raising children, because Jeanette and I are raising our 4 children right now. And we know how hard it is today to instill the values they teach in our church instead of the values they try to ram down our throats in the popular culture. We will unite this party, and we will grow it, and we will win. And when we win, there is a lot of work to be done. And by the way, you nominate me, you don't have to settle. Usually it's we need a moderate. I have a 15-year record of taking conservative ideas and turning them into conservative action. I was a member of the state legislature for 8 years, a part-time job, but I was speaker for 2. You know that today in Florida, I'm not saying this would ever happen, but a private developer cannot take private property to build a hotel using eminent domain. Not that that would ever happen, right? But you can't do that in Florida because of a law that I passed. We have more vocational training and career academies in our high schools in Florida because of what we did when I was Speaker of the Florida House, because we need more welders and pipe fitters and plumbers and electricians and airplane mechanics and car technicians. These are good paid jobs. When I was Speaker of the House, we cut our budgets. We balanced our budgets. We cut property taxes. We made a difference. I'm proud of the work we've done in D.C. It's a place where not a lot is happening, but we got the VA accountability bill passed. And earlier this year, I passed a law that increased sanctions on Hezbollah, an anti-Israeli terrorist group. And because of me, we passed the Girls Count Act to deal with human trafficking, a modern-day scourge. And by the way, almost everyone running for president says they're against Obamacare. I'm the only one that's ever done anything about it. I led the effort, and we got rid of the Obamacare bailout fund. We've done this now over the last 5 years, but it's not enough. Because you can't undo the damage of a bad president simply through members of Congress alone. Congress can shape the agenda, but only a president can set it. And after 8 years of Barack Obama, we need a president that will reverse the damage he's done, but also embrace the opportunities before us. I see a lot of young people here. I love my rallies because my rallies bring a lot of young people. And by young, I mean anyone who knows how to work the camera on their cell phone, because no one knows how to work their camera. I'm telling you, I've been taking pictures for months across the country, and only people under 30 know how to use their phone camera, so, for the most part. But I want to take a moment and talk to them specifically. Because this election is about you. In the end, this election is about our youngest Americans. The ones that are raising now, the ones that are in college, the ones about to get out, the ones starting their lives. I can tell you that for me, it's personal. I have 4 children, and I think about every day what the stakes are here. The stakes are, what kind of country will America be when my 16-year-old daughter graduates from college? When my 13-year-old daughter starts her first business? When my 10-year-old son buys his first home? When my 8-year-old son starts his family? What will America be like? That's what we're deciding now. And I know that our young people here, you get a lot of bad news. Every day there's bad news after bad news. Let me say a couple things to you. Number one, any study of history will prove a universal truth. Every generation thinks the next generation is messed up. That's always been true. It's true. Your parents, their parents thought they were messed up because they wore bell-bottoms. Your great-grandparents thought your grandparents were messed up because Elvis was moving his hips on the Ed Sullivan Show. My parents thought we were messed up because we listened to MC Hammer and wore parachute pants. I never wore parachute pants. I never wore them. I have my limits. I think you have a chance to be the next greatest generation. I really do. You are going to inherit a world. You are going to inherit a world where hundreds of millions of people that were once starving now buy things, now make investments, now can be your partners, your customers, your clients, and you're the best collaborators that have ever existed. You've grown up your whole life working together with people online and otherwise on great causes. You're growing up in an era driven by technology. You are the most technologically advanced generation in history. You're idealistic. You believe in the concept of justice. You hate injustice. You believe in right and you're outraged by wrong. You have a chance to be the next greatest generation. But we have to give you a chance. And we're not doing that now. And the truth is, you will not have a chance to fulfill your potential if you inherit 20 or $25 trillion of debt. You will not have a chance to inherit your potential if you inherit a world where America's weaker and our enemies are stronger. You will not have a chance to inherit your potential if we have an economy so dominated by government that only the people who can influence government can win and everyone else is left out. And so this election, we must choose a different course. In essence, we must choose to embrace all of the things that made America special to begin with. And the things that make America special are personal to me. Because America is not just the country I was born in. America is the country that changed the history of my family. Both of my parents were born outside of America on the island of Cuba. They were born to poor families with no money and no access to power. My father, for example, had to start working 4 days shy of his 9th birthday because his mother died. If he wanted to eat, he had to stop going to school and he had to start working at 9 years of age. And he never went back to school. And he would work for the next 70 years of his life. In 1956, my parents came to America. It was the only country in the world where people like them could have a chance. And life was hard. They came here with no money, no connections, no education, and by the way, very limited English. The first words my father learned in English were, "I'm looking for a job." Me too, yes. That's... And so, when they got here, life was tough. You know that book I mentioned a few years ago? I was talking to my mother as I was trying to write the story of when they came here. And she told me something I'd never heard from them before. She said, "Do you know that the first few years we were in America, they were so hard that we were discouraged? We thought we had made a mistake. We even thought about going back to Cuba." You can't imagine how fortunate I am that they did not. I would never have been born. But they persevered. They stuck it out. They kept working at it. Let me tell you how amazing America is. Less than 10 years after they came here with nothing, my dad was just a bartender at a hotel. And my parents bought their first home in a safe and stable neighborhood. And they never became rich. And they never became famous. But my parents were very successful people because they owned a home in a safe and stable neighborhood, because they were able to retire with dignity and with security, and most important of all, they were able to live to see all 4 of their children have a life better than their own. It changed their lives. It changed the course of my family's history. But I share this story with you because it's not just my story. That's our story, right? That's our story as Americans. Whether your parents came here from another country or not is not the point. We are all in America, just a generation or 2 removed from a story like that. It was what your grandparents did for your parents. It's what your father did for you, working 2 jobs. It's what your mother did for you, giving up her hopes and dreams so yours could have a chance. Maybe it's what you're doing now. Maybe you're the maid or the bartender at the hotel. Maybe you're the one that's working long hours, maybe 2 jobs, so your kids can be the first in your family to go to college and a better life. This is who we are as Americans. This is what defines us as a people. Every country in the world has rich people, and we celebrate financial success. But what makes us special are the millions and millions of people that are not rich and aren't trying to get rich. When you're a teacher like my sister, when you're a firefighter like my brother-in-law, when you're a nurse like my brother-in-law, you know you're not going to become a billionaire doing that work. All you want is a job that you enjoy and treats you fairly, and that pays you enough to own a home, buy tickets to the Gators, or the Seminoles, or UCF, or USF, or Rollins, or anybody else. Retire with dignity, and give your kids the chance to be anything they want. This aspiration has a name. It's called the American Dream. It isn't uniquely American in the sense that it's a dream that parents all over the world have. But they call it the American Dream because it's so rare anywhere else on this planet, and yet so common here. But you see, the American Dream was not possible by accident. It did not happen on its own. It happened because for over 2 centuries, each generation of Americans did what they needed to do. For over 2 centuries, each generation confronted challenges, embraced opportunities, and solved problems. And so for over 2 centuries, we are a country where each generation left the next better off. Now the time has come for this generation to do its part. And I'm here to tell you, if you make me President of the United States, this generation is going to do its part. We are going to do our part. We are going to do our part. I thank you. And I want you to know what lies before us. Before I do that, I want to say one more thing. The conservative movement can never be about anger or frustration or fear. It should not be. Yesterday, we lost a great First Lady in Nancy Reagan. God bless her. One of the great honors I've had is in 2011 when she personally invited me to speak at the Reagan Library. And I had a chance not just to speak there, but Jeanette and I had a chance to have dinner with her afterwards. She had incredible stories. Some made me look really bad. For example, she told the story about how Ronald Reagan used to send her mother flowers on Nancy's birthday to thank her for having Nancy. And my wife turned to me immediately and said, "You don't do that." So it's a high standard. But Ronald Reagan defined conservatism for a generation. I don't believe it's a coincidence that there are so many Republicans in their 40s and early 50s leading in our country now. Paul Ryan, myself, Scott Walker, Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, Mike Lee, Susanna Martinez, Nikki Haley, Bobby Jindal. Why are there so many people in their 40s and early 50s leading the conservative movement? Because we grew up in the era of Reagan. Because we are the children of the Reagan Revolution. Who is the up-and-coming Democrat? Who is the up-and-coming young liberal leader in America? Bernie Sanders. He defined a generation. He defined conservatism for a generation. And at its best, conservatism is not about scaring you. Conservatism is not about making you angry. Conservatism is realistic. We know the challenges we have. You don't need someone that's constantly reminding you of what's wrong. You know what's wrong. You sense it in your life. We have to be realistic and acknowledge it. But we should not be taking advantage of it. Conservatism at its core is about optimism, because we know if we do what needs to be done, America's greatest days always lie ahead. It is an optimism derived from our history. My grandfather was a huge influence on my life. He was born in the year 1899. When he was born, there weren't even airplanes in the sky. And yet, on one summer night, he watched on his small black and white television as a man stepped foot on the moon. Think about that. He was born when there was no airplanes in the sky, and he saw a human being step foot on the moon. And you know what he said to himself? He repeated this to me years after that. He said, Americans can do anything. Americans can do anything. We can do anything. There is no problem we can't solve. There is no challenge before us we can't overcome. There is no opportunity before us we cannot fully embrace. But we have to do it now. And it begins by electing the right person as President of the United States. And if you elect me president, we are going to do the right thing, and I'm going to tell you what history is going to say of us. Here's what history will say of us. It will say that this generation lived in the early years of this new century in a very difficult time. A very difficult time. Our economy was rapidly changing. Many of the jobs that once sustained us were being replaced by machines or sent to other countries. Many of the rules that once applied didn't seem to anymore. Our culture was confused. Right is now wrong and wrong was now right. We were in a lot of trouble. And we almost got it wrong. After 8 years of Barack Obama and one crazy election, we came very close to getting it wrong. But then in 2016, we remembered who we were. We remembered what America was. We remembered that our greatness has never been derived from a central individual, that the greatness of our country is not the result of one man or one woman or one president. The greatness of our country is from embracing our God-given rights, not our government-given rights, to life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. And we remembered that, and we embraced it, and we solved our problems, and we confronted our challenges, and we embraced our opportunities. And when our work was done, this generation also did its part. And because we did what needed to be done, this generation left its children as the freest and most prosperous Americans that ever lived. This generation didn't just save the American dream, we expanded it, and it reached more people and changed more lives than ever before. And the 21st century wasn't just as good as the 20th century. Because we did what needed to be done, the 21st century was a new American century. But first, I need your help. First, I need your vote. If you haven't voted already, I ask you to go out and vote early. Get it done with so you can go out and find more people to vote for me. Because as it does every 4 years, it is Florida who will play a pivotal role in selecting not just our nominee, but our president. And so here's what I ask. I ask you to go out and vote for me and make us our nominee. And then we're coming back because we are going to beat Hillary Clinton in Florida in November, and we are going to turn this country around. And we are going to leave for our children, what Americans always leave their children, the single greatest nation in the history of all mankind. Thank you and God bless you. Thank you.
Run down there. Come on, Mom. I think somebody's going to try and get back. I think he might come back this way after this. I know he's close.
Right for you. Thank you, guys. Yes, that's a good review. Dime, por favor.